Sold for nothing, the alien girl was worthless until a human changed her fate. The auction hall smelled of blood, burnt circuits, and recycled air, a scent that clung to the skin like shame. From the highest gallery, alien traders leaned forward, their multifaceted eyes glinting with anticipation. On the stage below, behind a cage of shimmering energy, stood a girl whose entire world had been distilled into a single word: worthless. Her name was Leora. Her skin shimmered with the faint purple-gray hue of a twilight storm, and her eyes flickered with dormant energy that had been deemed incomplete, unmarketable. Traders whispered and laughed. Some poked the cage with devices designed to read her potential. Others shook their heads in disappointment. Next, bellowed the auctioneer, his forearms gesturing wildly. A girl with no use, no value, unsold in every sector. Who dares claim her? The crowd murmured. Many had lost interest. The girl had been rejected too many times. But then a figure stepped forward, a human. He moved differently than the others. Calm, deliberate, like someone who weighed every step against consequences invisible to the rest. "I'll take her," the man said. The murmur turned to laughter. A human buying a worthless alien? Foolish choice, hissed a trader. She's nothing. Worthless. The human's gaze did not waver. Then I'll buy nothing. For Leora, something shifted. She had expected cruelty, exploitation, fear. But not this. He treated her not as merchandise, but as a person. His name was Captain Elias Drake, a mercenary with a haunted past and a quiet sense of justice. The transaction was made. Credits transferred, signatures forged, security protocols bypassed. And suddenly, Leora was no longer property of the cruel markets, but she still had no idea what freedom truly felt like. On board the Star Raptor, Elias did not demand her obedience. He did not interrogate her worth or mock her inadequacies. Instead, he offered something she had never known: patience. "You're not worthless," he said simply. "Not unless you believe it." Leora wanted to scoff. She wanted to retreat to her cage of silence, to the safety of believing she was nothing. But something about his voice, the certainty, the calm, stirred a tiny spark of hope she had long buried. Their first test came sooner than expected. The ship was ambushed by the Void Marauders, a notorious gang that fed on desperation and chaos. Plasma cannons tore through the void, shattering the delicate silence of space. "Stay in the cabin," Elias ordered. But Leora felt something rise within her. A pulse, faint but undeniable, thrumming beneath her skin. When the pirates boarded, she could no longer remain a spectator. Her hands ignited with violet energy, and waves of force surged outward, throwing attackers off balance and short-circuiting their weapons. Elias stared, disbelief mixed with awe. "Where did that come from?" I don't know," Leora whispered. "It just happened." It was the beginning of her awakening. Elias trained her relentlessly, not just in combat, but in control, in patience, in strategy. Day after day, he guided her raw power, shaping it into precision. Every mistake was a lesson. Every success a victory she allowed herself to own. Slowly, the shadow of worthlessness that had clung to her began to fade. Then came the mission that would define her. A distress signal from a colony in the Triangulum sector. Civilians were being harvested, their life energy siphoned to power an ancient, monstrous device. Elias and Leora arrived to find the colony in flames, screams echoing across the barren surface. Towering machines, pulsing with sickly green light, dragged innocence into their maw. "Stay behind me," Elias instructed, but Leora shook her head, her violet eyes flaring. "I'm not staying behind," she said, her voice steady. For the first time, she embraced her gift fully. Energy crackled around her, shielding the fleeing civilians, dismantling the harvesters, and knocking back the mercenaries who sought to stop her. Each pulse of power was precise, controlled, a manifestation of the person she had become under Elias' guidance. When the battle ended, the survivors stared at her, stunned. A girl once deemed worthless had saved lives. Elias smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "See? Not worthless." Leora looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes. I never thought I'd matter," she whispered. "But you changed that." Elias shook his head. "I didn't change you. You changed yourself. I just gave you the chance to see it." Their bond deepened over the months that followed. Together, they faced interstellar criminals, corrupt governors, and the remnants of the black markets that had once sold her. With every challenge, Leora's confidence grew, as did her mastery over her abilities. She was no longer a tool, no longer a commodity. She was a force, one that could alter the fate of worlds. The galaxy took notice. Stories of the violet-eyed girl who could dismantle armies alone spread through whispered transmissions. People who had once been abandoned or discarded looked to her as a symbol, a reminder that worth was not assigned, it was claimed. But even as she grew into legend, the shadow of her past lingered. In quiet moments aboard the Star Raptor, she would stare out at the stars and remember the auction halls, the jeers, the cold indifference of the galaxy. It had almost defined her, but she refused to let it. "You think anyone will believe I was once worthless?" she asked one evening, her hand brushing Elias on the observation deck. "They don't have to," he replied. "You lived it. That's enough." And it was enough. Leora's journey, from property to savior, was proof that worth cannot be dictated by others. It is forged in struggle, honed in adversity, and claimed by those brave enough to fight for it. She had been sold for nothing, dismissed as useless, and underestimated at every turn. But one moment of faith had set her on a path where she could become more than she had ever imagined. In the vast emptiness of space, Leora shone brightly. She was unstoppable. She was luminous. She was Leora, the girl once sold for nothing, now shaping the destiny of countless worlds. The universe had tried to break her, to define her by the value of others. But she had rewritten that narrative. And from the shadows of her past, a new legend emerged, one of hope, strength, and undeniable worth.